I'm so sorry to interrupt. This is going to sound completely insane.
I'm listening.
The rain had stopped 20 minutes ago, but the cobblestones in Pioneer Square still gleamed wet under the late afternoon light. Liam Bennett sat at a small round table outside a café, his laptop open to a spreadsheet thick with revenue projections. A porcelain cup of coffee cooled at his elbow. He was supposed to be watching his daughter, but Maya was content, legs swinging beneath her chair as she sketched clouds in her notebook. "Daddy, you're not looking," Maya said, without glancing up. "I'm looking," Liam replied, though his eyes hadn't left the screen. "You're lying." He smiled despite himself. "You're right. I'm lying." Maya giggled and returned to her drawing. That's when the woman appeared. She stood a few feet from their table, clutching the strap of her leather purse like it might escape. Her cream blouse moved slightly in the breeze. She looked polished, professional, but there was something fragile in the way she held herself, like she was one wrong word away from shattering. "Excuse me," she said. Liam looked up. The woman's eyes darted between him and Maya, then back again. "I'm so sorry to interrupt. This is going to sound completely insane." Liam closed his laptop slowly. "I'm listening." She exhaled, and the words came in a rush. "My ex-fiancé is getting married in 3 weeks. I was invited. I said I'd bring a date. I don't have one. If I go alone, it confirms everything he said about me. If I don't go, it confirms everything I fear about myself." She paused, swallowing hard. "I just need someone to stand next to me, smile, pretend I've moved on, just for one day." Liam stared at her. The request was absurd, borderline unhinged, but there was something in her voice, a rawness that cut through the noise of the city around them. Maya looked up from her sketchbook. "Daddy," she said softly, tugging at his sleeve, "that lady looks like she's about to cry." The woman laughed, short and breathless. "I'm not," she said quickly, then softer. "I mean, not yet." Liam studied her for a long moment. "What's your name?" "Sophie," she said. "Sophie Mercer." "Liam, this is Maya." Sophie crouched down, balancing on her heels to meet Maya's eyes. "Hi, Maya. I like your drawing." Maya tilted the notebook toward her. "It's clouds. Daddy says I'm good at them. He can't draw at all." Liam exhaled. "That's an exaggeration." Maya grinned. "It's not." Sophie smiled, something loosening in her shoulders. She stood, slowly, bracing herself. "I understand if this is inappropriate or insane. I can leave right now. Thank you for listening." She turned to go. "Wait." Sophie stopped, her back still to him. Liam leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "What exactly would this involve?" Sophie turned around, hope flickering cautiously in her expression. "A wedding in Woodinville, one afternoon, no pretending beyond that, no expectations afterward. I'd even pay you." "No," Liam said immediately. Sophie blinked. "No? I won't take your money." "Then why? I have a condition." Her breath caught. "Okay." Liam glanced at Maya, who was watching them both with curious, intelligent eyes. "You're good with kids." "I'm an elementary art teacher," Sophie said. Liam paused, weighing something internal. "Maya has a school project due, Impressionism. I don't understand it. I don't have time to understand it." He met Sophie's eyes. "If you help her with that and keep things appropriate, I'll go with you, as your date." Sophie stared at him like he'd just offered her oxygen. "That's it?" "That's it." She nodded quickly before he could change his mind. "Deal." Maya looked between them, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Before we dive into this story, I need your help. We're on a mission to hit 1,000 subscribers, and every single subscription gets us closer to that goal. If you enjoy stories about complicated love, about people who choose each other despite the odds, please hit that subscribe button. And I'd love to know, where are you listening from? Drop a comment and tell me your city or country. Building this community means everything, and knowing where you all are from makes it even more special. That night, Sophie sat in her car outside her apartment building and cried. Not because of Julian, not because she'd just propositioned a stranger in a public square, but because for the first time in months, someone had asked her for help without making her feel small. Sophie stood in the lobby of Liam's building 3 days later, staring at the brushed steel elevator doors like they might judge her. The address he'd texted was in downtown Seattle's most exclusive high-rise, the kind of place where doormen wore actual uniforms and the marble floors reflected your insecurities back at you. She pressed the button for the 32nd floor. When the doors opened, Liam was waiting in the hallway, still wearing a dress shirt from work, sleeves rolled to his elbows. "You came?" he said. "I said I would." He nodded and stepped aside. "Maya's been asking about you since yesterday." Sophie's chest tightened. The penthouse was exactly what she'd expected, and nothing like she'd imagined. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Puget Sound, the water grey and restless under evening clouds. The furniture was minimal, expensive, carefully chosen, but there were cracks in the perfection, a stack of picture books on the coffee table, a pink backpack by the door, crayon marks on one wall that someone had tried and failed to scrub away. "Sophie," Maya appeared from around the corner, barefoot, wearing paint-splattered overalls. She crashed into Sophie's legs with the confidence of a child who'd already decided they were friends. "I got my supplies ready," Maya said, grabbing Sophie's hand. "Come see." The dining table had been transformed into an art station. Brushes, paints, canvases, water cups. It was chaotic and beautiful, and exactly the kind of mess Sophie lived for. "This is perfect," Sophie said, setting down her bag. "Have you picked your artist yet?" "Monet," Maya said immediately. "Because of the water lilies. Daddy showed me pictures online." Sophie glanced at Liam, who stood in the kitchen doorway watching them. "He did good research," Sophie said. Liam's mouth twitched. "I can follow instructions." For the next hour, Sophie guided Maya through brushstrokes, color blending, the way Impressionists captured light instead of detail. Maya absorbed everything, asked questions that had nothing to do with art, laughed when Sophie's demonstration painting turned out lopsided. Liam watched from the edges. He noticed how Sophie never rushed Maya, how she listened when Maya talked about her day at school, about her best friend Emma who moved away last year, about how she sometimes felt lonely even in a room full of people. Sophie never interrupted, never tried to fix it, just listened. And Maya bloomed under that attention like she'd been waiting for it. Eventually, Maya's eyes started to droop. Paint streaked her cheek. Her last brushstroke went wide, smearing purple across the canvas edge. "I think that's enough for today," Sophie said gently. Maya nodded, yawning. "Will you come back?" Sophie hesitated, glancing at Liam. "If your dad says it's okay." "It's okay," Liam said quietly. After Maya went to brush her teeth, Sophie started cleaning up. Liam joined her at the sink, rinsing brushes in silence. "She fell asleep with her paintbrush last night," Sophie said softly. "You're doing a good job." Liam stopped rinsing. He looked at her then, really looked. "My ex left when Maya was 2, he said. The words came slow, like he was testing their weight. She said she wasn't ready to be this. He gestured vaguely at the apartment, the life, the responsibility. I promised myself I wouldn't bring anyone temporary into Maya's world. Sophie set down the brush she was holding. "That's not fear," she said. "That's love." Something shifted in his expression. Softened. "What did your ex say about you?" Liam asked. "The thing you mentioned." About confirming what he said. Sophie's hands stilled in the soapy water. That I lacked ambition, that I was settling for a small life teaching kids to finger paint instead of doing something that mattered. Liam's jaw tightened. He's an idiot. He's a corporate attorney, 6 figures, corner office. Still an idiot. Sophie laughed despite herself. You don't even know him. I know he couldn't see what was right in front of him. Liam dried his hands on a towel, then turned to face her fully. Ambition isn't about status, it's about showing up, being present. You're teaching kids how to see beauty, how to create it. That's not small. Sophie's throat tightened. No one had said anything like that to her in years. "Thank you," she whispered. Liam nodded, then stepped back, putting distance between them like he'd suddenly realized how close they'd gotten. "Same time next week?" he asked.
"Yeah," Sophie said. "Same time." She gathered her things, said goodbye to Maya through the bathroom door, and left. In the elevator, she pressed her forehead against the cool metal wall and tried to remember the last time someone had defended her without her asking. She couldn't. Back in the penthouse, Liam stood at the window, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. Maya appeared beside him, damp from her bath, smelling like lavender soap. "I like her," Maya said. "I know. Do you like her?" Liam looked down at his daughter's upturned face. "It's not that simple." Maya frowned. "Why not?" "Because she's temporary," Liam thought. "Because she's here for a transaction, not a relationship. Because the last time I let someone in, she walked out and Maya cried for weeks. But he didn't say any of that. "Go to bed, sweetheart." Maya hugged his waist, then padded off to her room. Liam stayed at the window long after her light went out. He realized with quiet dread that Sophie wasn't
temporary to Maya anymore, and he didn't know how to stop it. 2 weeks before the wedding, Sophie met Liam at a boutique in Capitol Hill to finalize their story. "We need to get our facts straight," Liam said, scanning the menu at a small corner cafe. "How we met, how long we've been dating, what I do for work." Sophie pulled out her phone, opening a notes app. "Okay, how did we meet?" "Through a mutual friend," Liam said, vague enough to avoid follow-up questions. "How long?" 3 months, long enough to be serious, short enough that people won't ask why they haven't heard about me. Sophie typed quickly. "What do you do?" "I run a private equity firm. We acquire underperforming companies, restructure them, sell them, or take them public." Sophie looked up. "You're serious?" "You asked." "I thought you'd say consultant or something." Liam raised an eyebrow. "Would that make this easier? Honestly?" "Yes." Sophie set her phone down. "Julian's whole friend group is finance guys. They're going to measure you the second we walk in. Let them. You don't understand. They'll ask about portfolios, exits, valuations." "Sophie." Liam's voice was calm, grounded. "I'm not performing for them. I'm there for you." She exhaled slowly. "Okay. What about you?" Liam asked. "What do I need to know?" Sophie hesitated. "Julian proposed to me at a charity gala in front of 300 people. I said yes because I didn't know how to say no in front of that many witnesses." Liam's expression darkened. "And later?" "Later, I realized I'd said yes to a life I didn't want. But by then the invitations were ordered. The venue was booked. His mother had already planned the rehearsal dinner." Sophie's voice wavered. "So I stayed for 8 more months until he cheated, and I finally had an excuse to leave that didn't make me look like the villain." "You were never the villain," Liam said quietly. Sophie looked down at her coffee. His friends don't see it that way. Then they're not worth impressing. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their shared honesty settling between them. "We should practice," Sophie said finally. "Practice what?" "Being a couple, in public." Liam considered this. "All right." They walked through Pike Place Market afterward, weaving between tourists and flower stalls. Sophie slipped her hand into Liam's, testing the weight of it. His fingers closed around hers automatically. It felt too easy. "Tell me something true," Sophie said as they paused near a street musician. "About what?" "About you. Something I'd know if we'd actually been dating for 3 months. Liam thought for a moment. "I haven't been on a real date since Maya's mother left. Every relationship since then has been carefully managed. Dinner meetings, no sleepovers, nothing that bleeds into her world." Sophie squeezed his hand. "That must be lonely." "It's necessary." "It can be both." They stopped at a railing overlooking Elliott Bay. The water churned, below them dark and restless. "Your turn," Liam said. "Something true." Sophie leaned against the railing. "I'm terrified that showing up to this wedding won't give me closure, that I'll still feel like I failed, that I'll look at Julian and Courtney and wonder why I wasn't enough. If this story is hitting you in the chest, if you've ever felt like you weren't enough for someone who didn't deserve you in the first place, do me a favor, hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe, because Sophie's about to walk into that wedding, and you're not going to want to miss what happens next. Trust me." Liam turned to face her fully. "You know that's not true, right?" "Logically, yes. Emotionally?" Sophie shrugged. "I'm working on it." "He didn't fail to see your worth," Liam said. "He failed to deserve it. There's a difference." Sophie's eyes stung. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Heard you're bringing someone to the wedding. Can't wait to meet him." "Courtney." Sophie's stomach dropped. "What is it?" Liam asked. She showed him the message. Liam's jaw tightened. "She's trying to rattle you." "It's working." "Then we don't let her." Liam took Sophie's phone, typed something, and handed it back. Sophie read the reply he'd sent, looking forward to it. Simple, confident, unbothered. "How do you do that?" Sophie asked. "Do what?" "Not let people get to you." Liam's expression softened. "I have a 6-year-old who asks me why the sky is blue every morning at breakfast. Courtney doesn't scare me." Sophie laughed, surprising herself. That evening, back at Liam's penthouse, Maya showed Sophie her finished Impressionist painting. It was bright, chaotic, joyful. Monet filtered through a child's unfiltered wonder. "It's perfect," Sophie said. Maya beamed. "Will you come to my presentation?" Sophie glanced at Liam. "It's next Thursday," he said. "Her class is doing a gallery walk." "I'll be there," Sophie promised. After Maya went to bed, Liam walked Sophie to the door. "Thank you," he said, "for helping her, for being patient with this whole absurd arrangement." Sophie looked up at him. They stood close enough that she could see the faint lines around his eyes, the shadow of exhaustion he carried like armor. "It doesn't feel absurd anymore," she said softly. Liam's hand moved, almost instinctively, toward hers, then stopped. "Good night, Sophie." "Good night." She left before she could do something stupid. In the elevator, she pressed her back against the wall and closed her eyes. 3 weeks ago, this was supposed to be a transaction, a performance. Now it felt like the most real thing in her life. And that terrified her, because in 1 week, she'd walk into that wedding on Liam's arm. And she had no idea what would happen when the performance was over. The vineyard glowed gold under late afternoon sun, rows of grapevines stretching toward distant hills like something out of a painting Sophie would have shown her students. White chairs lined the lawn in perfect symmetry. String lights hung between oak trees waiting for dusk. Everything looked expensive, curated, flawless. Sophie's hands trembled as Liam stepped out of the SUV and came around to open her door. He wore a dark suit, no tie, the kind of understated elegance that didn't need to announce itself. When he offered his hand, his grip was steady, grounding. "You don't have to perform," he murmured as she stepped out. "Just be here." Sophie nodded, though her throat felt too tight to speak. They walked toward the entrance together, Liam's hand resting lightly at her lower back. The gesture felt protective, deliberate, real. Inside the estate's courtyard, guests clustered in small groups, champagne flutes catching sunlight. Sophie recognized faces immediately: Julian's college roommate, his law partners, women from Courtney's book club who'd never actually read the books. And then she saw them. Julian stood near the bar, tall and confident in his tuxedo, puffing at something his best man said. His hair was perfect. His posture screamed success. He looked exactly like the man Sophie had almost married, and exactly like a stranger. Courtney appeared beside him, her hand sliding possessively around his arm. She wore ivory lace, her engagement ring catching light like a small sun. Her smile was sharp, practiced. Their eyes found Sophie. Julian's expression flickered, surprise, calculation, something that might have been regret, before settling into polite neutrality. Courtney's smile widened. They crossed the courtyard together. "Sophie," Julian said, his voice smooth as expensive whiskey. "You made it." "I said I would." His gaze shifted to Liam, assessing. "And this must be—" "Liam Bennett," Liam said, extending his hand. Julian shook it, grip firm, competitive. "Julian Reeves, what do you do, Liam?" "I build companies," Liam said calmly. "Private equity, acquisitions, restructuring, growth capital." Julian's eyebrow raised slightly. "Which firm?" "I own it." The air shifted. Courtney's smile tightened at the edges. "How wonderful, and how did you two meet?" Sophie opened her mouth, but Liam answered first. "Through a mutual friend, 3 months ago." His hand returned to Sophie's back, a subtle claim. "Best decision I've made in years." Sophie's breath caught. Julian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Sophie never mentioned she was seeing anyone. "We've been keeping things private," Liam said. His tone was even, unbothered. "For Maya's sake." "Maya?" Courtney asked, leaning in like she'd caught something. "My daughter," Liam said. "She's 6. Sophie's been teaching her about Impressionism, Monet specifically. She has a presentation next week." The way he said it, casual, proud, like it was the most natural thing in the world, made Sophie's chest ache. Julian's expression shifted into something Sophie recognized, condescension wrapped in concern. "That's sweet. Still teaching, then?" "Still changing lives," Liam corrected, his voice cool. "One kid at a time." Courtney touched Julian's arm. "We should greet the other guests, darling." They excused themselves with practiced smiles. The moment they were gone, Sophie exhaled shakily. "You okay?" Liam asked quietly. "You didn't have to defend me." "I wasn't defending you, I was telling the truth." Sophie looked up at him, something warm and dangerous unfurling in her chest. Before she could respond, a bell chimed. The ceremony was starting. They found seats near the back, Liam's presence solid beside her. As the music began and guests stood, Sophie felt his hand find hers. She squeezed back. The ceremony passed in a blur of vows and readings and carefully orchestrated emotion. Sophie waited for the jealousy to hit, the regret, the what-ifs. It didn't come. Instead, she felt relief. Relief that this wasn't her life, that she wasn't standing up there promising forever to someone who'd measured her worth in salary brackets and social capital. Halfway through the vows, she glanced at Liam. He wasn't watching the ceremony. He was watching her. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. An acknowledgement, a question neither of them was ready to answer. When the officiant pronounced Julian and Courtney married, the guests erupted in applause. Sophie clapped mechanically, but her mind was elsewhere. The reception spilled onto the terrace, tables dressed in cream and gold, florals spilling from crystal vases. A string quartet played something elegant and forgettable. Sophie and Liam found their assigned seats, table 7, tucked between Julian's law school friends and distant relatives. Dinner was salmon and tension. The woman to Sophie's left, Regina, made polite conversation that felt like an interrogation. "So you're a teacher? How noble. Must be rewarding in, non-financial ways." Liam's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Sophie's work has more impact than most careers in this room," he said evenly. "She's shaping how children see the world. That's not noble, it's essential." Regina blinked, taken aback. Sophie's hand found Liam's knee under the table. A silent "thank you." His hand covered hers, stayed there. After dinner, the dancing began. Liam stood, offering his hand. "Dance with me." Sophie hesitated. "You don't have to." "I want to." They moved to the floor as a slow song began, something about second chances and new beginnings. Liam's hand settled at her waist, hers on his shoulder, their other hands clasped between them. They swayed slowly, neither of them particularly graceful, but it didn't matter. "Thank you," Sophie whispered. "For staying, for all of this." "You don't need to thank me." "I do. You could have left after the ceremony. Well, you had no reason to stay." Liam's hand tightened slightly at her waist. "I had a reason." Sophie's heart hammered. "What reason?" He looked at her then, really looked, and Sophie saw something in his eyes that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. "You," he said simply. The world narrowed to the space between them. The music, the guests, Julian and Courtney cutting their cake across the room. It all faded into background noise. "Liam, I know," he said quietly. "I know this was supposed to be temporary, a transaction. But somewhere between Monet and today, it stopped feeling like pretend." Sophie's breath hitched. "For me too." His thumb traced a small circle on her waist, the gesture unconscious, intimate. "What do we do now?" she asked. "Listen, I need to pause here because if your heart is racing right now, if you're feeling what Sophie's feeling, I need you to do something. Subscribe right now, because what happens next is going to wreck you in the best way, and you're not going to want to miss a single word. This is the moment everything changes. Don't let the algorithm decide whether you see the ending. Hit that button, I'll wait. We finish this dance," Liam said, "and then we figure it out. Together." Sophie nodded, resting her head against his shoulder. Across the room, Julian watched them with something that looked like realization. Courtney noticed, her expression tightening. But Sophie didn't see them anymore. She saw only the man holding her like she mattered. And for the first time in years, she believed it. The vows began just after sunset. Sophie hadn't planned to stay for them. The ceremony was over. Their appearance had been made. She'd proven she'd moved on, that she was fine, that Julian's rejection hadn't broken her. Mission accomplished. But when the officiant invited guests to remain seated for a special vow renewal reading, something Courtney's parents were doing to honor their own anniversary, Liam didn't stand to leave. He stayed. Sophie glanced at him, questioning. "You want to go?" he asked quietly. She should have said yes, should have suggested they slip out before the emotional weight of other people's promises crushed the fragile thing growing between them. But she shook her head. No, I want to stay. The terrace lights dimmed, candles flickered on every table. Courtney's parents stood at the front, aged and elegant, holding hands like they'd been doing it for 50 years, because they had. The officiant spoke about commitment, about choosing someone not once, but every day, about love that wasn't a feeling, but a decision made over and over in the small, unglamorous moments. Sophie felt the words land in her chest like stones. She'd never chosen Julian, not really. She'd said yes to an idea, a timeline, a version of herself she thought she was supposed to become. But sitting here now, Liam's hand warm on the table beside hers, she understood the difference. Choosing someone meant seeing them fully, flaws, fears, complications, and deciding they were worth it anyway. The way Liam chose Maya every single day. The way he'd chosen to stay tonight, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Courtney's father spoke his vows first, his voice steady despite his age. I choose you in the morning when you steal the covers. I choose you at dinner when you tell the same stories I've heard 1,000 times. I choose you when things are easy and when they're impossibly hard. Because love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone worth choosing. Sophie's throat tightened. Beside her, Liam sat very still. When Courtney's mother responded, her voice cracked with emotion. You gave me a life I didn't know I needed. You saw me when I felt invisible. You stayed when leaving would have been easier. A tear slid down Sophie's cheek before she could stop it. Liam noticed. His hand moved slowly across the table, fingers brushing hers. She turned her palm up. He laced their fingers together. The gesture was quiet, deliberate. Not for show, not for the audience, for them. Sophie looked at him, vision blurred. Liam looked back, and in his eyes she saw the same realization she was feeling. This wasn't pretend anymore. Maybe it never had been. When the vows ended and the applause began, Sophie didn't move. Neither did Liam. They sat there, hands clasped, while the world carried on around them. Finally, Liam spoke. Can we talk? Somewhere private? Sophie nodded. They slipped away from the terrace, following a stone path that wound through the vineyard. The music faded behind them, replaced by cricket song and the rustle of grapevines in the evening breeze. They stopped at a bench overlooking the valley, lights from distant houses scattered like stars. Liam turned to face her. I need to say something. Okay. When I agreed to this, I told myself it was transactional. Help with Maya's project, show up to the wedding, go our separate ways, clean, simple, safe. He paused, his jaw working. But then you stayed late helping Maya blend colors, and you laughed at her terrible jokes like they were the funniest things you'd ever heard. And you looked at her like she mattered, not because you had to, but because you wanted to. Sophie's chest ached. And somewhere in all of that, Liam continued, his voice rougher now, I stopped pretending when I held your hand tonight, when I danced with you, when I watched you cry during those vows. None of that was performance. That was real. Liam! I'm not done. He stepped closer. I haven't let anyone into Maya's life because I was terrified of her getting hurt again. Of me getting hurt again. But you walked into our world and made it better without even trying. And now I don't know how to walk away from that. From you. Sophie's breath came shallow, fast. I don't want you to, she whispered. You don't? She shook her head. I came here tonight expecting to prove something to Julian, to everyone, that I was fine, that I'd moved on, but the only person I proved anything to was myself. She took his hand, holding it between both of hers. I proved that I'm
capable of something I never had with him. Something real, something that scares me because it actually matters. Liam's thumb brushed across her knuckles. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't want this to end when we leave here. I'm saying Maya asked me yesterday if I was going to be around for her birthday next month, and I didn't know how to answer because we never talked about after. Sophie's voice broke. I'm saying I'm terrified because I'm falling for both of you, and I don't know if that's allowed. Liam pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. It's allowed, he said roughly. God, Sophie, it's more than allowed. What about Maya? Maya already loves you. She told me last week you're her favorite person who isn't me. Sophie laughed through tears. She said that? Word for word? And you? Liam pulled back, just enough to meet her eyes. I'm falling too. Have been since you crouched down to talk to her about clouds. I just didn't let myself admit it.
Sophie kissed him. It wasn't dramatic or perfectly timed. It was messy and salt-tinged from tears and absolutely right. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Liam smiled, really smiled, for the first time all night. So what now? Sophie asked. Now we stop pretending this was ever fake. She laughed. We're really doing this. If you want to. I want to. They walked back to the reception hand in hand, but everything felt different now, lighter, truer. Julian was dancing with Courtney, spinning her under the lights, performing Happiness for an audience. Sophie felt nothing watching them, no jealousy, no regret, no what-ifs, only gratitude. Because if Julian hadn't broken her heart, she never would have found the courage to ask a stranger for help, and she never would have discovered what it felt like to be chosen. Not as a placeholder, not as a project, but as herself. Whole, flawed, and entirely enough. 3 days after the wedding, Sophie sat cross-legged on her apartment floor, staring at an email she'd received that morning. Seattle Arts Foundation Artist in Residence Program. Congratulations, your application has been accepted. 6 months in Portland, full funding, studio space, a chance to develop her own curriculum, work with underserved kids, maybe even exhibit her work. She'd applied 4 months ago, back when her life was small and safe and predictable. Back when leaving Seattle felt like escape instead of abandonment. Now it felt impossible. Her phone buzzed, a text from Liam. Maya wants to know if you're coming to dinner tonight. Fair warning, she's making the menu. Sophie smiled despite the knot in her stomach. What's on the menu? Spaghetti and dessert surprise. I'm scared. I'll be there. She stared at the acceptance email for another long moment, then closed her laptop without responding. That evening, Maya's spaghetti turned out to be mostly sauce with occasional noodles, and the dessert surprise was ice cream with every topping she could find in the pantry. It was chaotic and perfect. After Maya went to bed, Sophie helped Liam clean up, their rhythm in the kitchen easy now, familiar. You're quiet tonight, Liam said, drying a plate. Sophie rinsed a fork, buying time. Just thinking. About? She set the fork down. I got an email today, from an arts program in Portland. Liam went still. Portland. Artist in residence, 6 months. It's a good opportunity. Really good. When would you leave? 4 weeks. The silence stretched, heavy with everything they weren't saying. Are you going to take it? Liam asked finally. I don't know. Sophie turned off the water, gripping the edge of the sink. A month ago, I would have said yes immediately. But now you have a reason to stay. She looked at him. I have 2 reasons. Liam exhaled slowly. Sophie, I can't ask you to give up your career for us. That's not fair. And I can't ask you and Maya to upend your lives for something that might not even work.
Out. Who says it won't work out? It's only been 3 weeks, Liam. Real weeks, I mean, since the wedding. Since we admitted this was real. Sophie's voice wavered. What if I stay and 6 months from now you realise this was a mistake? What if Maya gets more attached and then it falls apart anyway? Liam crossed the kitchen in 2 strides, taking her face in his hands. Look at me. She did. I don't do casual, he said firmly. I don't bring people into Maya's life unless I'm sure. And I'm sure about you. But I also know what it feels like to give up dreams for someone else. My ex did that, resented me for it. Resented Maya. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. If you need to go to Portland, go, grow, create. I'll still be here when you get back. What if you're not? Then I'm an idiot who let the best thing that ever happened to us walk away. Sophie's eyes burned. I don't want to lose you. You won't. You can't promise that. No, Liam admitted, but I can promise I'll
fight for this. For us. Distance doesn't scare me. Losing you because you stayed and regretted it? That terrifies me. Sophie pulled away, wrapping her arms around herself. I need to think. I know. She left shortly after, kissing him briefly at the door, neither of them knowing what came next. The following week crawled by in agonizing slow motion. Sophie avoided making a decision. Avoided the email sitting unanswered in her inbox. Avoided the growing fear that choosing anything meant losing something irreplaceable. She showed up for Maya's birthday party, a small affair in Liam's penthouse with balloons and too much cake and a painting Maya had made of the 3 of them. Sophie stared at it, her throat closing. In the painting, they stood together in front of a house, not Liam's penthouse, a house with a yard and a tree. Maya had drawn herself in the middle, holding both their hands. If you've ever had to choose between love and your dreams, between staying and going, you know, exactly what Sophie's feeling right now. And if this story is cutting deep, if you're holding your breath, wondering what she'll choose, I need you to hit subscribe, because the ending is coming, and I promise you, it's worth the heartache. Don't miss it. Do you like it? Maya asked, appearing at Sophie's elbow. I love it, Sophie whispered. It's us, Maya said simply. Our family. Sophie's vision blurred. Later, after the guests left and Maya crashed in her room, sugar-drunk and happy, Sophie found Liam on the balcony. She called us a family, Sophie said. Liam nodded. I know. I can't break her heart, Liam. Then don't. But if I stay, you'll resent us eventually, I know. Liam turned to face her. So here's what we do. You go to Portland. You take the residency. And we figure out the rest as we go. Long distance with a 6-year-old? That's not fair to her. What's not fair is lying to her about who you are. She doesn't need you to sacrifice your dreams. She needs
you to show her that women can chase what they want and still be loved. Sophie's breath caught. You're serious? Completely. Liam took her hand. Portland's 2.5 hours away. I'll drive down weekends. You'll come back when you can. We'll video call. Make it work. And if it doesn't, then at least we tried. At least you didn't give up something important because you were afraid. Sophie studied his face, looking for doubt, for resentment, for any sign this was a mistake. She found only certainty. Okay, she said finally. Okay? I'll go, but Liam, she stepped closer. I'm coming back. Not maybe, not hopefully. I'm coming back to you, to both of you. He kissed her then, slow and deep and full of promise. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. We'll be here, he said. waiting. 2 weeks later, Sophie stood in her new Portland studio, boxes half unpacked, staring at her phone. A text from Maya. I miss you already. Daddy says 47 days until you visit. Another from Liam. She's been counting. So have I. Sophie smiled through tears, typing back. Miss you both more. See you soon, I promise. She set the phone down and looked around the empty studio. This was supposed to feel like freedom. Instead, it felt like the hardest thing she'd ever done. But also the rightest, because for the first time, she wasn't running from something. She was running toward herself. And when she was ready, when she'd grown and created and proven to herself that she could, she'd run back to them. To the family she'd found in a café on a rainy afternoon. To the man who'd agreed to be her fake date and became her real future. To the little girl who'd called her family before Sophie even knew she was looking for one. 4 months later, Sophie stood in her Portland studio, staring at the canvas in front of her. It was her final piece for the residency exhibition. 3 figures painted in Impressionist style, soft edges, bold colors, light breaking.
Through clouds. A man, a woman, a child, not Maya's stick figure version, her own. Her phone rang. Liam's name flashed on the screen. Hey, she answered, tucking the phone between her shoulder and ear as she cleaned her brush. Hey yourself, you ready for tomorrow? The exhibition. Her first real showing in years. Terrified. You're going to be amazing. You're biased. Completely. She could hear the smile in his voice. Maya wants to say hi. Shuffling sounds then. Sophie, Daddy says we're leaving in 2 hours. Sophie laughed. I know, sweetheart. Did you pick out your dress? The blue one, with flowers. Daddy says I look fancy. You're going to be the fanciest person there. More shuffling. Liam again. She's been packed since yesterday. I had to stop her from sleeping in the car last night. I can't wait to see you both. Sophie. His voice shifted, became quieter. I need to tell you something. Her heart skipped. Okay. These 4 months have been hard. Really?
Hard. Maya asks about you every single day. I sleep with my phone next to my pillow in case you call early. I've driven to Portland 6 times and it's never enough. Sophie's throat tightened. Liam, let me finish. It's been hard, but it's also been worth it. Watching you grow, seeing your work, hearing the excitement in your voice when you talk about the kids you're teaching, that's worth every mile between us. Tears pricked her eyes. I'm coming home soon. I know, but before you do, I need to ask you something. What? When you come home, and I mean really home, after the residency ends, will you come home to us? Not visit, not stay over sometimes. Home. Sophie set down her brush, her hand trembling. Are you asking me to move in? I'm asking you to build something permanent. With me, with Maya. I'm asking if you're ready for that. She closed her eyes and suddenly she could see it. Mornings making breakfast while Maya painted at the kitchen table. Evenings curled up
on the couch after bedtime. Weekends at parks and museums and everywhere in between. A life. A real one. Yes, she said. God, yes. She heard his exhale, relief and joy tangled together. Yeah. I've been ready since the wedding. I just needed to prove to myself I could do this first, that I could chase something for me and not lose you in the process. You could never lose me. I know that now. The next evening, Sophie's exhibition opened to a room full of strangers and a handful of people who mattered more than all the rest combined. Liam stood near the entrance in dark jeans and a grey sweater, Maya's hand tucked in his. Maya wore her blue flower dress and white tights, her hair pulled back with a ribbon that was already coming loose. The moment Sophie saw them, Everything else faded. She crossed the gallery, ignoring the guests, the critics, the people who'd come to judge her work. Maya broke free from Liam's hand and ran, crashing into Sophie's legs with the force of 4
months' worth of missing. "You're here," Maya said, muffled against Sophie's skirt. "I'm here." Sophie crouched down, eye level. "What do you think of the paintings?" Maya looked around seriously, then back at Sophie. "They're pretty, but I like the real us better." Sophie laughed, pulling her close. "Me too." Liam approached slower, giving them their moment. When he reached them, Sophie stood, and he pulled her into his arms without hesitation, right there in the middle of her gallery opening. "Proud of you," he murmured against her hair. "Thank you for waiting." "Always." They spent the evening weaving through the crowd together. Liam fielded questions about the pieces with surprising insight. Maya declared herself Sophie's assistant and handed out programs to anyone who'd take one. Near the end of the night, they stood in front of Sophie's final painting, the family portrait. "That's us," Maya said, pointing. An older woman standing nearby smiled. "Is it?" "Yeah," Maya said,
proudly. "That's my daddy, and that's Sophie. She's gonna live with us when she comes home." The woman looked at Sophie, at Liam, something knowing in her expression. "How wonderful. You make a beautiful family." After she walked away, Liam pulled Sophie aside. "So," he said quietly, 2 weeks? 2 weeks until the residency ends. And then?" Sophie looked at Maya, who was explaining the painting to another gallery visitor with dramatic hand gestures. "And then I come home," Sophie said, "to both of you, for real this time." Liam kissed her softly. "I'm holding you to that." "Good." 2 weeks later, Sophie pulled up to Liam's building with everything she owned, packed into her car, and a U-Haul trailer. Maya was waiting in the lobby, practically vibrating with excitement. "You're here! You're really here! I'm really here!" Liam appeared behind her, taking in the trailer. "That's a lot of art supplies." "I'm an art teacher. What did you expect?" He grinned. "Fair point. Come on, let's get you home." They spent the afternoon unloading boxes, Maya helping by unpacking Sophie's paintbrushes one at a time and announcing the color of each. When the last box was finally inside, Liam ordered pizza and they ate on the living room floor, too exhausted to care about plates or furniture. Maya fell asleep between them, tomato sauce on her chin, completely content. Liam looked at Sophie over Maya's sleeping form. "This is it, you know. The hard part, the everyday, the ordinary. I know." "Still in?" Sophie reached across Maya, taking his hand, completely. 6 months after that, on a Saturday morning in early autumn, Liam took Maya and Sophie back to Pioneer Square, to the same café, the same table. "Why are we here?" Maya asked, swinging her legs beneath the chair. "Because this is where it started," Liam said. Sophie looked at him, confused. He stood, pulling a small box from his pocket, and dropped to one knee right there on the cobblestones. "Liam!" "Sophie!"
"Mercer, you walked up to me a year ago and asked me to pretend to be your date. I agreed, because I thought I was helping you move on from someone who didn't deserve you. But the truth is, you helped me move on from being afraid. From protecting my heart so carefully that I forgot how to use it." Maya bounced in her seat, grinning. "You brought color into our world, literally and figuratively. You showed Maya what it looks like when someone chooses you, not because they have to, but because they can't imagine doing anything else." He opened the box. A simple ring, elegant and understated. "I'm not asking you to be my fake anything. I'm asking you to be my real everything. Will you marry me?" Sophie's hands covered her mouth, tears streaming. "Yes! God, yes!" Maya shrieked with joy, launching herself at both of them. They ended up in a tangled heap on the cobblestones, laughing and crying and perfectly happy. A year later, they stood in the same vineyard where Sophie had
watched Julian marry Courtney. But this time, she wasn't a guest, she was the bride. And instead of watching someone else make promises, she was making her own. To the man who'd agreed to stand beside her when she needed saving and stayed when she learned to save herself. To the little girl who'd called her family before she knew how desperately she needed one. When the officiant asked if she took Liam to be her husband, Sophie didn't hesitate. "I do. I choose you, today and every day after." Liam kissed her while Maya cheered and the small gathering of family and friends applauded. Later, at the reception, Maya showed off the painting she'd made for them, another family portrait, this one with a new addition, a baby sister she'd decided they needed. "We'll work on that," Liam whispered to Sophie, making her laugh. As the sun set over the vineyard, Sophie stood with her husband and daughter, watching the sky turn gold and pink and purple. "Happy?" Liam asked. Sophie looked at him, at Maya, at the life they'd built from a desperate question in a public square. "More than I ever thought possible." Because sometimes the best love stories start with someone brave enough to ask a stranger for help. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, that stranger becomes your home. If this story moved you, if you believe in second chances and choosing love, even when it's scary, do one thing for me. Subscribe. Share this with someone who needs hope. Leave a comment telling me what spoke to you, because stories like this matter, and you being here matters. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing. Until next time.